Behind every amazing flavor is an amazing human who has perfected their craft. Welcome to Flavors Unknown, a behind-the-scenes look at new flavors and the chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders who create them, with your host, Emmanuel.
Hey there, welcome to episode 52 of the Flavors Unknown podcast. My guest today is Chef Brian Duffy from Philadelphia. Brian Duffy is a chef known for numerous appearances on TV series Bar Rescue and has a podcast called Duffified Live. He is passionate about casual dining, and he even made a business out of his passion with his consultancy firm focusing on small restaurants and bar operators. I am your host, Emmanuel Laroche. If you are new to the podcast, I have been in the food industry for more than 20 years, both in Europe and in the US. And every other week, I interview chefs, pastry chefs, and bartenders around the country. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe to it and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Flavors Unknown. And you can find the show notes from this episode on the website flavorsunknown.com. And now here is my conversation with Chef Brian Duffy, where we talk about what made him focus his career on casual dining after attending culinary school and working at fine dining restaurants. And he's going to share with us the different steps restaurant and bar owners have to take ramping up to opening night. Hey, good morning, Chef. I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I'm super stoked to be here finally after all this time of trying to put this together.
Yes, absolutely. It's tough. With you guys, you have a hectic, obviously, calendar, especially at the moment. And, we need to make sure as well that we are in a good setup, for the recording. Everything about this because you are a professional of podcasting.
I do.
How is it going?
I actually stopped. I stopped for
really?
A while.
Okay.
Yeah, I needed a break. It was just my between travel and the restaurants and everything else and shooting. And it just got to a point that tried to record and be upbeat, energetic, have all that going all the time and trying to get people and trying to get guests, as you know, which is really one of the hardest things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of slowed down for a little bit. I guess I've probably taken a month and a half off now. So, yeah.
Okay.
Just focusing on the restaurant.
Are you going to come back to it? Do you think?
Yeah, I will. I will. Trying to get guests onto the show. And then the next part of it is really the technical issues. It's like the amount of people that don't know how to use Skype. So I just kind of slowed down and, it got to a point that a lot of podcasts that I was getting guests on for ended up being commercials. People didn't really want to, it was just like, It was a constant talk about, I'm a chef. I like to talk to people about food and have fun.
Sure. So how has been this whole craziness of, the pandemic for you? Because it's obviously impacted, the hospitality industry big time. And it's been a huge, emotional roller coasters, for chefs and people in the hospitality, industry. So how have you lived it personally?
On my level, it was a little bit different. I was involved in a series of restaurants with clients and partnerships and all that stuff and ownerships. And I got rid of everything in January. So my number one focus for this year was for my restaurant, my barbecue place.
Yeah.
Which is
Ardmore
why I got
Q,
rid of
correct?
Yeah. It's Ardmore Q. It's a little smokehouse, a little barbecue joint. We play really loud music and, just in the suburbs of Philly. We play loud music. Our number one goal is just food. We're not a service destination. It's not like I have servers and, people running to tables and selling booze and all that. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer for us to walk right into the to-go arena because we were already doing it. So we had a good 3 months of sales. Things worked well for us. And as soon as it happened, I made the decision that I was going to feed any hospitality employee who got laid off. So we started to do a thing called staff meal, which was, basically if you called up and said that you were laid off, we wanted to know what restaurant And that was about it. You came in, you picked up food. We made a different staff meal every day. They're individual meals that go out. We would sometimes feed. I had a guy who called in every single week, and every time he came in, I gave him lunch and dinner. So I gave him two things, one for him and one for his wife at night because he would get dinner, and then I would give them food for the next day, totally separate dishes. So, he was one of the most memorable ones. I had about 5 dudes walk in one day. They were all barbacks and bartenders from a restaurant in Philly. And so we had a real good amount of people. And then people started to hear about it, and people started to call in and say, hey, can we purchase meals for people? So I created a program called Staff Meal, which you could order for $10. You would basically pay $10 and it would feed 3 people. Every time that somebody placed an order, we actually had Post-its. We put them all over the wall. So anybody who walked in, they could grab one. It was a fun little program. And, we got to see hospitality industry and have conversations with them and find out what's going on with them and how they're handling everything. And it got to be it was a neat experience for us.
Yeah. And I think that all the people working in that worked, unfortunately, in the hospitality industry, really need that at the moment is like any type of platform when they can connect, with others.
Oh yeah.
And they can exchange and they can, have like human interaction that, are dramatically missing, at the moment. So it's a great things that, you have done. And if the people are interested, in fact, they can follow your stories on, like I do on Instagram, on the Chef Brie Duff, at Chef Brie Duff. And so they can see, all of that.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram's a lot of fun for us. We have a good time on there.
Yeah. Was the restaurant like open, in March, already, or did you had like a closing,
No.
time?
So Pennsylvania, this has been the weirdest kind of part about the whole thing was, so nobody really knew what was going on. I mean, I was in Florida. I had an appearance down in Florida at one of my clients' restaurants, which is called City Tavern. It's a great little spot. And at this point, Florida was still open. Florida wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in the rest of the country. And this was March 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. So this was smack dab at the beginning of the whole thing. So, I mean, I remember being in the restaurant, and on St. Patrick's Day, things were just kind of going back and forth. And, they had shut the event down, but my client had a private license that he was able to continue doing an event. So we continued to do the event during that time frame. And then when we finished the event, I got home at the end of the day, I started to kind of look at the news and I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to get home. So I booked my flight for Tuesday. I changed it. Originally, I was going home Wednesday, and I hopped on a plane on St. Patrick's Day. Super weird. I had a mask on. I had gloves on. I had operating room sanitary wipes that I was literally, everywhere I went, I wiped down because we didn't, this was the beginning of it.
Yeah. Yeah. The whole contact things, at the beginning was big. Yeah.
I mean, and there's people in the airport and I'm looking at people and they're sharing drinks and hugging each other and coughing and kissing. And I'm like, man, I got to get the hell out of here. And, I did. I flew home, had a direct flight. I landed in Philadelphia, and like the blur just started to happen as soon as I landed. The streets were empty. I mean, Philadelphia was shut down at that point. The streets were completely empty. It was a ghost town. And I remember coming home and I had sent a text message to my whole staff. And I said, at this point, we're open. If anybody is uncomfortable working, please let me know right now. And the 2 people that said that they were uncomfortable were a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old girl who were working for me, my niece and my daughter. My daughter didn't really want to work because her mom's husband, my ex-wife's husband, works in a hospital. So Fiona couldn't even leave the house. Fiona did not leave her house.
Oh, sure.
For
yeah.
5
She was quarantined
straight. She was
Yeah.
quarantined. The rest of my staff said, like, look, as long as you keep us safe, we're good to go. So we did, we kept everything super tight. We only allowed a certain amount of people in the restaurant. And then the fluctuation started to happen where, they were saying it's going to be 2 weeks. We'll go until the beginning of June. Oh, I'm sorry, until April. And then it was May. And then it just never ended. And now they just told us again that restaurants are not allowed to reopen until September 1st. So you're talking about March to September. And in Pennsylvania, we were allowed to have open dining. You were allowed to be inside the restaurant as long as you were distanced, and you were allowed to open at 50% of your capacity. So if you think about a restaurant like me, who is 1,100 square feet on the first floor, with 600 of that square feet, 700 of that square feet being utilized for kitchen, counter, service space, that means that in reality, I could only have 2 tables in the restaurant. Well, for me, I don't want people in the restaurant in the first place. No offense. During the summers in my restaurant, it is 100. When I walked in there last night at 10 o'clock, it was 107 degrees inside the restaurant.
Wow. Sure.
Okay. I don't have air conditioning. I have a 225 degree smoker that is inside of the dining room. I have to have a hood on. When the hood's on, you can't hear people. During the winter, it's brutally cold. So for me, the inside is not the ideal place to be. I'll make updates for next year, but for this year, it just wasn't worth it for me to even do it. So we opened outside, and we opened outside in about the middle to late April. I just got sick and tired of being inside. I didn't want to do it anymore. So I started a thing called My Way or the Highway. And that means that I make a burger on Saturday afternoons. That's my way or the highway. There's no modifications to it. It's a $5 burger. And the first day we sold 25 of them. This week I sold 98. So, it was a good opportunity to get people out of the house. They socially distanced themselves because I have 6-foot picnic tables. So and I have 8 of them outside of the restaurant. So people strategically kind of went out and lined up. I've told people, if you guys want to bring chairs and tables, do it. I put my grill in the middle of the street. It's a wood-fired grill we set up, and we cook burgers. And that was because I was tired of being inside.
And you have done some other, I'm going to call them pop-up, but it's maybe not the right term, but, in different locations, correct? Around Philly?
A little bit here and there. I partnered up with a brewery called Bald Bird Brewing. And they're in Audubon, Pennsylvania, which is just, if anybody knows Pennsylvania, it's about 15 minutes from Villanova. It's about 8 minutes from the King of Prussia Mall, which at one point was one of the biggest malls in the country. But it's, it's just a cool little spot. It's a big parking lot. We pop up a huge tent, and we bring the smoker out, or we bring a wood-fired grill, and we go to town. We char every burger bun, every brioche. We do pulled pork sandwiches and pulled chicken. And, this past week I did smoked sausage cheesesteaks. So I did a kibasi. I did a smoked sausage. We did caramelized onions. We do a barbecue cheese whiz.
I love that.
Yeah, we have a good amount of fun.
Any style, of like a type of barbecue that you're doing, or?
My barbecue is more on the Texas side because of the rubs that we use, but I don't really follow any one style. I mean, my main barbecue sauce is called America sauce. So it's a combination of all 4 styles of barbecue. So it's got molasses, it's got vinegar, it's got dry rub, it's got mustard, it's got ketchup, it's got brown sugar. So we really hit all 4 styles of barbecue in one. And I actually made that sauce for the military because I do a lot of work with the military. And I work for a group called the Mess Lords, and we volunteer our time and we fly all over the world and cook for the troops. It's pretty awesome. Wow. Sorry for the yawn again.
You need your jug of coffee here.
I've got it right next to me.
So I'm curious here because, we'll come back to the whole situation of the pandemic because I have some other thoughts and things that I would like to have your feedback on. But because you are talking about this, you are passionate about, those type of, I would say, mainstream restaurants, barbecue, burger, pizza, and so on. But at the beginning, you went to culinary school, like a lot of, chefs, in Philly. After graduation, you worked for like a James Beard Award, winning chef at the Four Seasons in Philly.
Yeah.
So you could have done with like a path with a lot of other chefs that done, into fine dining, but you haven't done that. And so I'm curious, why is your passion and your focus, and other things that you are we talk about your career and your role as a consultant and so, in that industry, but you focus on this, I would say, like mainstream, like restaurants. And I thought it's fascinating. So I just wanted to have your thoughts on that.
I always say that the moment I got into school, I fell in love because I really enjoyed the concept of cause and effect. I've always been a science guy. I love cause and effect. And so school just hit me right off the bat. Like I was really into it. And, I was kind of a dick in school. I'm not going to lie. I was inquisitive. I wanted to know what was going on. I was constantly asking questions to the point that my instructors were like, you're a pain in the ass. I remember I went back in to teach concept development at my alma mater. And I was walking down the hallway and the dean of education walked past me and he's like, I heard you were going to be doing this. He's like, welcome back, whatever. And he said, I hope you have 2 of you in your class. I hope you have 2 of you. I knew what that meant. I was tough. I was in competition with every other student in there because we were all leaving and going to be graduating at the same time and going for the same jobs. So I was super aggressive. While they were starting a softball team, I was working 2 apprenticeships. I did my apprenticeship at the Four Seasons under Jean-Marie Lacroix, a phenomenal, wonderful, wonderful man who every day he walked into the kitchen in his pristine white jackets and shook everybody's hand and said, thank you for being. And then I would leave the Four Seasons and I would go to a restaurant called San Marco, which was this beautiful Italian restaurant that was owned by Lucio Fini and Fausto De Carlo. And I learned Italian food and I learned how to break down veal from Fausto De Carlo's father, who used to smoke Marlboro 100s in the kitchen and leave the ash on there. And he'd be breaking down a side of veal with a pen stroke. It was an art to watch him use a knife and to follow the striations of meat and the fat lines and the muscle lines and be able to break these things down. And from there, I graduated. Oh, and I also bounced at a bar at night. So I was like 2 apprenticeships in the morning, bouncing at a bar at night, and then going to school full time at the same time.
Good to be young.
I was. Yeah, exactly. And, and so I had that work ethic instilled in me from my father, from my mother, moving into things. And so I graduated from culinary school and I went into a fine dining setting down in Key Largo, Florida. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. I loved the artistic approach to it. I loved the passion behind it. I loved the creativity. I enjoyed the rush, the getting burned by the asshole chef named Jay Anderson, who stood next to me and burned me every day. These were the things, but I came back to Philadelphia and I started to go into these smaller locations and I loved it. I loved the creativity that I had where I could put food on a plate for the regular person that was updated, upscale, upper class, but I didn't have to charge the same prices as a lot of the fine dining places were because I had half the staff. And in reality, I had half the ingredients of the cost of the ingredients going onto the plate. So as a chef, I was able to make more money for the owner by doing it the way that we did it. Now I've opened fine dining properties. I've opened, super high end haute cuisine style restaurants and the whole 9 yards. My passion plays in the casual realm. That's what I love to do. I love to put the chef technique into everything that we do because I utilize my culinary degree every single day.
Do you think that this passion, and after what became like an expertise that, you have used and coached, other, and is going to be really the right things to have at the moment, because I think that there's a lot of people in the hospitality industry and the restaurant industry that are coming back from like the bigger the better, like the bigger restaurant the better, because of like the whole situation. And at the moment, people understand that they can be profitable with like a much smaller, a structure, more smaller team and deliveries and pickup and so on. So that connects more with the casual, I would say, space. And you have a ton of experience there. So that's probably something that you can leverage, because a lot of people are wondering, how do I do this? What's the best practices, to do something like that?
I mean, I heard a horrible number yesterday. That is that 85% of independent restaurants are going to close before the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
85.
Wow.
85%. Now, how dramatic is that? Who knows? In reality, where do we get any of our news from these days? I don't trust any of them. I think they're all full of shit, every part of it. So I listen to 3 news sources. I listen to CNN, I listen to Fox, and I listen to NPR to balance out my life. That's the only place to go. So who knows where we can get these things? But even if that number is 50%, we are going to have a massive resurgence of the restaurant industry with these younger chefs who are going to be able to walk into properties that were shuttered, with high-end kitchen equipment, with full dining rooms ready and set to go, because these people just couldn't, weather the storm. But I also think that we've been walking out of the fine dining space, and it's a horrible word to use, fine dining, but we've been walking out of that space for many years. We are in a casual concept now. People want to be able to go into more of a gastropub style setting, go in, sit down on a weekly basis, as opposed to a super high end fine dining restaurant that you're only going to maybe 2 times a year. Those special occasion places, I feel, are just they're going by the wayside. And we're now seeing that most of them are closing anyway.
Do you think this is, for the good? I mean, this is good, this is bad. What's your thoughts about this? Because I think that having this, I would say, variety and choice and this whole gamut of, from fast casual dining, and fine dining, makes like really like the culture of of a country, and the diversity is important. So just to have your thoughts on it.
Is it going to go away is it going to go away 100%? No, not at all. But there's going to be few that can weather the storm. I mean, I look at a restaurant around me that's called Savona, which is a beautiful restaurant I'm not sure who the chef is there now, but the chef who was there prior that I knew about was a master chef. They just spent probably 40 grand in putting a parking lot tent up. So their entire, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful setting. It's a black platform that has railings around the outside of it with a huge tent over top of it, with twill draped on all of the edges, with lights that are, twinkling throughout the whole thing. It's beautifully lit. It's beautifully presented. What are you going to do in November in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
Because they're saying we might reopen September 1st. It was June 1st. It was July 1st. It was, now it's, then it was August 1st. Now it's September 1st. So what are these restaurants going to do in November? Because guess what? It's cold in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
November, December, January, February, March, April are cold months over here. So that's my fear. I think that we're weathering right now what we can because of the fact that people can go outside and eat. But then we walk up against this other thing, like Philadelphia just said, okay, you guys, we're doing outdoor dining. But then Philadelphia walked through the streets a couple of weeks ago and wrote fines to everybody who had outdoor dining that didn't apply for a permit. So it's like, as a state, we're shutting you down. As a city, we are shutting you down and putting regulations on everything that we do. And then on top of it, you've got these little mom and pop shops that are just trying to make it. And now we're going to give them a fine because they don't have a permit.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
We're hitting every single, it's almost like a screw you around every corner.
Everything that you're describing, all those like tough situation of people being laid off, furloughed, this situation of, fine dining, which is, in a very bad situation. And do you see a positive, that there's some positive outcome, for the hospitality industry at the moment, in the pandemic?
The one thing that I have as a takeaway of all of this is that we're a tough group of people. We're tough. We literally have pivoted. We have adjusted. We've readjusted. The whole idea of hospitality is that interaction. It's an interaction between people, and we're segregating the restaurant industry by saying you have to wear a mask when you're in the restaurant while you're working. You have to wash your hands every 7 minutes, whatever it comes down to. We have so much responsibility, but the guest is still just willy-nilly, man. They're just doing their own thing. They're taking their mask off as soon as they walk in the restaurant and they sit down. The positive that's going to come out of this is that I think we're going to have a stronger restaurant union. And by union, I don't mean union. I mean a stronger restaurant community, because we've all made it through this. We're going to make it through it. It's just that simple. We're just having a really hard time pivoting right now because we don't have, and this is not a political statement, we don't have the leadership that is telling us in reality what to do. We have multiple people telling us and giving us different directions of what to do. Wear a mask. No, if you wear a mask, you're going to get sick. Wash your hands. No, you don't have to. It's like, we're just constantly going around this whole thing. So I think the huge positive from this is that we're going to walk out super strong. Right now, we don't have a solidified world. As when all of this happened, we had 8 million people that were laid off at one moment. And right now we're having a hard time getting those 8 million people back because 75% of those 8 million people, and that's a number that I just made up. I'm just having a conversation, but 75% of those people are making more money than they were before. So for me, I'm trying to find a really good kitchen manager at this point. I don't need a chef. I need a worker. I need somebody who's going to come into the restaurant, who's going to light my smokers when I'm not in the restaurant, who's going to follow my lead and my technique. But people don't want to work because they're making too much money staying home. I've had people not show up for interviews. I've interviewed people over the phone that were unbelievably promising, that then when we sit down and we start talking and they're like, well, I'm making more money at home. So what can we do about this? And it's like, it's just getting really bad, getting really, really bad and scary. But when we come back, we're going to be strong, man. We're going to be super strong because I think that the labor laws are going to change with it. The pay rates are going to change with it. And I think that the average consumer is getting much more of an understanding of what happens in restaurants now because everybody's talking about it.
Exactly. I think that, the positive aspect is exactly what you are mentioning. And the fact as well that the people reconnected, with food and the experience of food and good food, at home during that, the quarantine time and so on. And with all the chefs now being on social media and doing a lot of demos and, talking about it, I think it's one of the, if I may say, like, a positive spin, on the situation.
Well, and I think it's so neat to watch. It's really, look, when I first started, when all this happened, I was doing my videos in my kitchen. I was doing a lot of that. I was really enjoying that time. And then, 5 weeks, 6 weeks into it, I look around and it's like every single person who's ever worked in a kitchen is now doing a live Instagram video. So I kind of backed off. I was like, let everybody do their thing. And, I started to really focus on the restaurant, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to focus on the restaurant, the business, my staff, the food, the execution, because we were thrown into a world of where we might do, let's say that we did 50% to go before. Now we're at 100% to go. So we've got to rework packaging. We've got to rework the way that we hold food, the way that it gets to the guest. Every guest who was coming in the restaurant, we started to let them know the best way to reheat the product when they got home, if your fries weren't crispy and stuff like that. But for me, I really liked seeing a lot of the chefs that are out there that are doing the videos and doing the other stuff. I'll tell you right off the bat that I was pretty shocked at, a lot of the chef personalities, the celebrity chefs who just didn't do shit. They just didn't do shit. It was like, if they weren't getting paid for it, they're not going to do it. And then Food Network basically was like, you guys got to start doing stuff. Now we start to see a lot of the Food Network chefs that are on there. Look, Michael Simon, he's brilliant. I loved what he did during the whole thing. His videos were brilliant. They were accessible to the average consumer. They were informative. I really enjoyed watching him do his stuff. Bobby Flay, he didn't do shit. He didn't do anything. Whatever he did was boring. There was really nothing on there that was exciting. And then I think he kind of had a turn and he started to do some really cool stuff. And I love Bobby. I think he's a great dude. I think that he's a brilliant chef. To be doing what he's done for all of these years, competition, beat Bobby Flay, grilling and chilling, the competitions that he was doing while he was on the road. There's a tremendous to be said about that. There's a lot of knowledge that has to be in a person's brain to be able to do that. But I think that a lot of these guys took it as a break. Let's sit back and not do anything. And now I think everybody's getting a little bored. And I see a lot of amateurs that are now becoming really, really good chefs. And I think one of the funniest things that I did was I did a whole video on how to break down chickens and how to break down ducks and poultry. And it was one of the highest viewed videos that I'd ever done.
Yeah. Simple techniques that people can apply at home. Yeah.
And I always laughed. I mean, Jacques Pepin, you watch Jacques Pepin break down a chicken and it is like watching an artist work. It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're talking about celebrity chef and TV and so on. So how was your experience about this? Because you were in this TV series, Bar Rescues, some years ago. And then how is doing? You're still doing, because I know it was just like launching and so on, this the Food Network opening night. So what's the... So is it still on?
Who knows? Who knows anymore? I think that TV right now has no idea what they're doing. Network television has no idea what they're doing. Everything is streamed. People, I haven't had cable in 5 years. When I had to watch the premiere of my show, I watched it on my phone. And I borrowed my buddy's DirecTV password, so that I could download the app and watch it on my phone because I don't have cable. Most people that I talk to say, hey, where can I watch it? And I'm like, on Food Network. Oh, do I have to get the app? And so what happened with that show was that Food Network loved the show, and then they made some changes internally, and we lost our network producer, our network executive, who ended up going down to Nashville, and she was a massive supporter of the show, loved it. She created it with us. It was a lot of her vision as much as it was mine, as it was the production company of High Noon. And then we went into another network, and then we went to another network. And then we went to another network. So now the passion of a show is diluted. And what they said last round was, we're going to hold off for a little bit until we air the rest of the episodes. And at that point I said, hey, can we get me out of my contract?
Oh, okay.
So I was locked into Food Network, unable to do anything for a period of time. And I'm out of that contract now. What they're going to do with the show, I have no idea. Will it ever air again? I have absolutely no idea.
Okay. Because the concept was all about this idea of like what you need to have when you launch a restaurant, creating the menu, the pricing of the menu. But it was all about gearing up, for the opening night, right? Because the opening night is critical and key, right? But can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it was a 7-day process before we opened restaurants. So when I open a restaurant, I don't take on all of the responsibility, because if I take on all of the responsibility, then there's no ownership from the owners, the staff, anything like that. So what I do is I give homework throughout 3 months before they open the restaurant. And then what happens is I typically show up 5 to 7 days before the restaurant opens to go in, train the staff, make sure that they're ready to rock and roll. And then we have a series of events that lead up to that final opening night. So let me do it this way. Let me do 2 different levels of this. The first level is what I do when I open a restaurant. Okay. So my 5-day process beforehand is my staff, the restaurant themselves will get food in on Friday and Saturday. So the food that comes in Friday is dry goods and dairy. The food that comes in on Saturday is produce and meat. So perishable products are coming in. Not long shelf life are coming in on Saturday. They then prepare the food. They get the stuff. They put everything away. And then they have a recipe book that they have to follow, that they create the recipes. When I walk in on Monday, I do a full inspection of the property. I walk through the bar. I go through the dining room. I go through storage. I go through inside, outside systems, everything. And then Monday night, we do a huge menu class. I take the entire staff. We sit down. We walk through the entire menu, including beverages. We talk about every single ingredient. If I'm making a blue cheese dressing, I'm telling you every single ingredient that's in that blue cheese dressing. If I'm talking about a burger, I'm walking you through the process of every single item that goes onto that burger, what station it comes off of, how fast it takes to get it out of the kitchen, what plate it's going to go on, all of that. So it's a very in-depth process that's about 4 to 5 hours of education. Tuesday morning, I walk into the restaurant. We do a first dry run of the first half of the menu with one staff. And then the next portion, we do the second dry run of the menu, which is we make every single dish. We double check everything. We taste it. Then Wednesday, we make adjustments to the food and we get prepared to do friends and family. Friends and family is when we invite in a series of people. They come in over a 5-hour period where we invite them into the restaurant. They get to come in, sit down, order food, and we limit what they can order at each table. So if you and I went in to sit down, you would get menu A and I would get menu B. Now, to the naked eye, they look exactly like the same menu, but what I have markings for your menu that you can only order from that. So that way you can't order a Caesar salad and I can't order a Caesar salad at the same time. What I want to have happen is I want you to order one thing and I want the other guest to order something else so that we're making every single item on the menu, and it just works that way so that every item on the menu is made in the kitchen. We do that on Wednesday. And then typically by the time that third shift rolls around, your kitchen staff is on point. They've made every item on the menu. They're now working it. They're timing it. They're working well together. Afterwards, we close down and then we go through a full kind of download of what the night was. We go through every comment card because every guest that comes in to eat for free, they have to fill out a comment card. We go through the comment cards. We put all the negatives to one side. We put all the critiques to another side. And then we put all the really good stuff and we hide that away. We don't really care about the really good stuff that night. What I want to see are fixes. What do we need to fix? If one person says that the blue cheese dressing was too salty, then I go, okay, well, that guy just didn't like salt. But if 10 people say it was salty, then we have to adjust the recipe. And that's what we kind of do. So it's an adjustment phase. Thursday, we give the kitchen staff a break and we do a VIP night where we invite in all the VIPs, all the people that built the restaurant, the bankers, the mayor, planning committees, investors, friends, everybody. And we just put food out. There's no ordering of food. we just make food all night long. If I make one burger, what I do is I'll ring in 10 burgers into the kitchen, same exact burger. We cut all those burgers in quarters. They all go out on plates and we serve them to the guests throughout the whole night. It's an easier night. And then Friday we open to the public. So that is the process of doing that. For the show, I never go through like I look at the menu and I talk to the chef about the menu. And then I go into the restaurant and then I watch the process happen because I've already given them a direction of what to do. And then I watch the process happen. And do you know what the number one common denominator is of every restaurant that we did on the show?
No.
Not one of them had recipe.
Oh, wow.
So the chefs of all of these properties were just winging.
Okay.
So, a cook is coming over saying, hey,
sure, cannot reproduce it. Yeah.
You told me to cut all of these onions. What do I do next? So now the chef is running over and saying, do this, 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 this. Meanwhile, there's 4 other cooks that are walking around saying, what do I do next? So in my real business, I will validate 4 people in the kitchen that me and the sous chefs will work with. And then those people go and they train the other people. So it's a really nice process for the way that this stuff works.
Is it part of like under the umbrella of your company called the Duffified Experience Group? Because that's how I think we met, and I'm sure you don't remember it, but we met like, I don't remember if it's like 4 or 5 years back at the nightclub and restaurant show in Vegas, and attending your one of the presentation that you gave there that I thought was really, really well done. And so we met after the presentation, and I always then kept track and stay connected with you. So, but the idea is that I thought that the whole consultancy business that you had that's pretty neat. So if you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so my consultant business right now is kind of on hold. I'm doing a couple different projects with a couple different people, but I've really kind of slowed down because of the restaurant and because of what's going on. Restaurants aren't opening right now. Some of them are, but yeah, I mean, my business goes everywhere from concept development all the way down to the actual openings of the restaurant to evaluations, where I will walk into a restaurant as a secret shopper and I will give you a full evaluation of your restaurant. I typically will go in on a Wednesday night and I'll walk into the restaurant kind of, just super low key, sit down at the bar, order a drink, talk to the staff, go to the table, sit down and order some food. I usually have friends meet me in town to go and sit with me and do this. And then I go through and I really am there for about 4 or 5 hours. I take notes during the entire time. So I just kind of look like a dude who's just on his phone texting, but in reality, I'm taking notes. It's funny. I once had an owner who walked over to me in the middle of me doing one of my evaluations about 3 hours in. And he looked at me and he said, I had no idea I was going to be paying you to sit on your phone and text all night.
Oh my gosh.
And I looked at him and I said, I will never forget this. And I looked at him and I said, I have zero reason to defend myself to you because of what it is that I'm doing right now. But I turned my phone around and I showed him my notes that were extensive notes. I work off of an app called Trello where I put high priority items in there. I have pictures of every single thing that's going on. I have pictures of bartenders smoking cigarettes in the kitchen. Like, you're shocked. And I looked at the guy and I turned around and I said, thank you very much. And I turned around and started to walk out. And he's like, whoa, where are you going? And I said, you don't trust me to do what I'm doing. I'm never going to trust you to be able to follow what it is that I'm about to set in place for you. So I wish you the best of luck in what you do. And he called me 5 or 6 times to come back in and kept throwing money. Will you please? Will you please? Will you please? And finally it got to become a joke and we ended up becoming friends. And I ended up going back into his restaurant and resetting. And since then I've opened 2 other restaurants for him. But it's just kind of funny because the next morning after I do that initial evaluation, I go into the kitchen at 10 o'clock in the morning, chef jacket on, the whole 9 yards. And I start to work with the kitchen staff to find out what their process is to get ready. And then in the afternoon, I sit down with the owner or with the management team and I talk to them about what's going on. And then I sit down, I do a session with all of the employees, no ownership, no management around. I do a whole session with them to find out what they think is going wrong in the restaurant.
Could you say to us, share with us, what do you think are like the top, 3 mistakes that you see that restaurants or bar owners are making?
I mean, 1, micromanagement. 2 would have to be owners really trying to do stuff that benefits the owner as opposed to the guest. That's one thing, that's like one of the big things. And the other one is that owners are just kind of non-existent. It's a struggle. It's a struggle, especially like for me, I was finding that problem. And that's one of the reasons why I hate to say it. I really enjoyed the pandemic in the beginning because I was back into my business. I was operating my business again. So it was a huge thing for me to get back in. The main thing would be a lack of communication from management and ownership down to staff. The average person, when they leave nightclub and bar, and what I tell everybody is, I want you to pick your top 10 takeaways, and I want you to do this over a 10-day period with your staff. Every day, you're going to take one of your takeaways from the show, and you're going to communicate that with your staff. So let's say that you go to nightclub and bar, and you find a brand new music system, a brand new lighting system, you find a brand new POS, you find a chef consultant who's going to come in and redo your menu. You find a bar consultant who's going to come in and redo your menu. And imagine walking into your property after you fly home on Wednesday, and then Thursday you call an all staff meeting and you sit down with your staff and you're like, okay, first thing is first. 1, here's a chef consultant. 2, here's a bar consultant. 3, everybody has to make sure that they're filling out this paperwork before they go. 4, here's what you need to do. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What your staff does is now they're overwhelmed, they're confused, and they don't know what to do. So what you do is you go back into your restaurant and you start with one item. Hey guys, here's the deal. I have 10 things that I'm going to focus on over the next 10 days that I want you guys to retain and be able to work with. Here's number 1. I have hired Phil Wills to be my bar consultant. Phil's going to be coming in 3 weeks to do this. I've hired Brian Duffy to come in and be my chef consultant. He's going to be here in 5 weeks. So it's like you really kind of lay it out for your staff so they're not overwhelmed. They haven't been given too much information at one shot. Like it's really an important thing to do. Because as owners, we want to go to shows like this. We want to get as much information, bring it back and institute it immediately.
Absolutely. Yep.
But it's not a good way to do it. And the same thing happens like when Bar Rescue was in its heyday and Bar Rescue was a respected industry source of information. Managers of companies, managers of restaurants and owners would watch the episodes, go in on Monday morning and have meetings and say, okay, here's what we take away from last night's show. Here's what I think we should do. How do you guys feel about this? And I think that Bar Rescue changed the restaurant industry for a period of time to be better.
Yeah, but and I know that using that word is the wrong one because of the context, but wouldn't you have an opportunity? That's the wrong word, but opportunity at the moment, with all the experience that you have to coach, people that could be in difficult time to how to pivot their business. Is there something there?
Yeah, there's a tremendous opportunity for that because people aren't sure what to do. And look, I being a restaurant or an industry expert for as long as I have been, I'm just as confused as everybody else is. And the reason why I'm just as confused as everybody else is because we are not being led the way that we need to be led. Look, the only person that I pay attention to when it comes down to the pandemic and what to do really is CDC and WHO. That's who I'm paying attention to. Whatever the CDC is saying, that's what I'm following. Okay. I'm not following anybody else. If they're saying that we need to wear a mask, I'm wearing a mask. If they're telling me that my staff in the restaurant has to wear gloves, then everybody in that restaurant is wearing gloves, which by the way, I'm sick and tired of the gouging that is happening with gloves and Sani wipes. I'm paying $125 to $150 a piece for gloves right now that were $55 to $60.
Yeah.
So
And wipes are impossible to find, for like the common, like consumers.
I bought a case of wipes the other day for $127 for a case of wipes. I mean, and it is what it is, but we need it. We've got to do it. Then I'm fine with that. But don't suggest, we're suggesting that you do this. We need a direct line of communication to what needs to happen immediately.
Okay.
And that has to go forth, and that happens with leadership across the board.
So we have been talking a while here, but I would like to pick up your brain. It's something that I do on each of the episodes that I have when I have chef, on the show.
Oh, I love it.
What would be your suggestion for like a home cook or like a food enthusiast, I would say, to prepare an interesting burger or a slider, at home, but I would say Brian Duffy style. So what unique twists would you suggest them to do?
My number one thing is to play around with different cuts of meat. You want to get a burger is going to be good with fat. It's just that simple. So to be able to get something like a really good brisket and grind it up and make your own patties, if you really want to make a great burger, start grinding your own patties. Really get into finding a good grind of meat or a couple different types of meat. I love a burger that's got a small, 10 to 15% of lamb in it, because I think that lamb has an unbelievable flavor that just is enhanced by that grilling, by that searing, by that caramelization, that Maillard that is happening in that browning process. And I love lamb for that. Now, will I put lamb in my burgers? Not right off the bat, because the guest isn't ready for that. But if I'm at home, that's my number one thing. The other thing for me is awesome cheese. Cheese.
Yeah.
Go
what kind?
and find yourself. For me, I love a Tillamook cheddar. I love a really good, super sharp cheddar. I love a Cooper American. I love Cooper American. The melting process of it, the creaminess, the umami that happens in your mouth with that burger, that fat, that cheese, that bun, that lettuce, that tomato, that onion. That to me is a perfect burger. And then for me, in reality, an unbelievable egg. Watch some of my egg videos of how to cook an egg, and it will change. I watched, there's so many people that I don't know where it came from, but the idea that we have to constantly be moving a pan. There's something to be said about science. If I have a steak or a burger and I put it into a pan and I'm constantly moving it around, I never have an opportunity to create a crust. I never have an opportunity to allow that scientific process of Maillard, which is that natural sugar that is released, that protein starts to brown. We never let that happen. Or the other thing is too low of a heat. I watch people all the time put a pan on a stove and then throw a piece of chicken. And it's not the way that it works. Well, my chicken tastes forever. I never get color on it. It doesn't taste good because you're not cooking it properly. So to me, if I'm going to do a sick burger, I'm going to teach people how to do it the right way. And I actually did a video that's on my Instagram, and it's a Duffified burger, and it was a commercial for a company called Ganella Bread. And I made a Duffified burger that's on there, and it is a basted burger where we actually seared the burger and then we basted it with butter and garlic and olive oil and rosemary like you would a steak. And it's an awesome burger, and we top it with a fried egg.
So that I wanted to ask you, when you were talking about an egg, that's a fried egg, correct? That you're putting on it?
Well, we call them dippy eggs in Philly, yes.
Okay. Dippy egg, okay.
Yeah, and a dippy egg is a fully firm white with a runny center. But it's got a fried crust to the outside of it that will only happen by letting it sit in the pan.
Going back to your burger, to the meat, do you add any specific seasonings in the burger itself?
All I do is I add salt and pepper to the outside of the burger. I season one side. Now, here's the other thing that I watch people do that annoys me. And I mean this in a loving, caring, gentle way. I watch people season the stuff after it's already being cooked. Well,
Mhm.
when you take salt and pepper and I'm sorry, I'm drinking too much coffee now. See, I'm finally awake,
Yes, I can
but
hear it.
now I'm burping.
Good.
So what is happening is that when you take that salt and pepper and you put it onto the burger before it goes onto the grill, the flat top, the griddle, whatever it is that you're going to do, you are now incorporating that seasoning into the meat. Okay. And what I mean by that is take your burger when it's raw and you're going to season the side of it that's facing you. And then when you put that burger on your surface, whatever you're going to cook it in, you're going to flip it upside down so that that seasoned side is cooking first. Then you're going to season the other side. Because what happens is that salt and pepper is going to cook into that meat and flavor that burger that much better. But if I season it afterwards, it's like throwing sand against a wall. It's just not going to stick. It's just going to fall off. So technique dictates the outcome. So season your burger ahead of time, pop it into that grill pan, and move forward from there.
Any sauce that you add to your burger, like a mayo base or mustard base? Or
I mean, I'm a mayonnaise guy. I'm a mayonnaise guy across the board. I just think, look, mayonnaise is awesome. It's fat. It's
Sure.
fat and oil. It's fat and oil.
Any spin on the mayonnaise? Anything that you put in
I
there?
love to do an aioli or something like that, but it all depends on the burger itself. But if I'm just going to have a burger, if I'm like, you know what? I want a burger today. My burger's going to be a buttered grilled brioche because I love brioche.
Yep.
And on the bottom bun, I'm going to put a shredded lettuce. I'm going to put 3 thin slices of tomato or 1 very thick slice of tomato. During the summer, I like a very thick slice of tomato because as I look out my backyard in this small little backyard that I have with my 9 to 11 foot tomato plants that are growing right now, I've got 1 whole plant just of San Marzanos. I've got 3 heirloom plants, and then I have 2 additional plants that are just kind of hybrids. But when I look out there, I literally am looking at a tomato called a Black Beauty that is almost ripe that I can't wait to slice that into a 1/2 inch thick slice and put it on a burger. That is what I'm looking at when I see that tomato right now. But
very cool.
So then over top of that tomato, I'm now putting a very thin slice of red onion. And I'm talking paper thin that I'm shingling. Not one big thick slice. I'm breaking the slice apart so that I have rings of onions around the bottom of it. And then on top of there, I put my burger. And then on top of there, I will put my cheese and whatever else is going to go into it. But on the base, and I forgot to tell you my base, will be a little bit of ketchup, a little bit of mustard, and a little bit of mayonnaise. So I'll do like a dot of mustard in the center. I'll do a ring of ketchup around that dot of mustard, and then I'll do a ring of mayonnaise around the ketchup so that I'm getting that full bite. And to me, that is an absolutely perfect burger. I don't need to add an egg or anything else to it. Just that burger, that cheese, that mustard, that onion, that ketchup, that lettuce, that tomato, that mayo, and all that. So, yeah.
Let's finish the discussion here, the conversation we had with a series of rapid fire questions, if I may.
Go for it.
What's your favorite guilty pleasure food?
Chocolate or ice cream. Bad. It's bad.
What kind of ice cream? Come on, you have to tell me now.
Ben & Jerry's, Chubby Hubby, or fish food. Those are my 2. Those are my go-tos.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had it last night.
Uh-huh. Can you give me 3 dishes that you could not live without cooking or eating?
Crabs.
Crabs? Soft shell?
No, blue crabs.
No. Blue crabs.
Hard shell crabs. I was allergic to shellfish for the first 18 years of my life. And we lived at the beach. My parents had a house at the beach every summer. So we would go down and I would have to catch fish while the rest of my family ate crabs and all the other stuff. Okay. So I forced myself at the age of 18 to get over that allergy. And I now eat crabs. I am getting off the phone with you today and I'm ordering 5 dozen crabs because we're cooking them for my sister's birthday. Crabs are a staple for me. I don't like Old Bay. I like my claws to be put into tomato sauce. I like a little bit of pasta, the old Italian way. And then the crabs, I have them cleaned ahead of time, meaning I clean them. And then I saute them in garlic and olive oil, salt and pepper, and a little bit of butter to finish them off. And I'm a happy, happy man. Give me a
Wow.
bottle of Budweiser, let it run down my arms, and I'm a happy guy.
Okay. So that's what the first one, crab. What about the two others?
Eating would have to be the way to go with it because I love to cook pretty much everything. The second would have to be eggs. I love eggs. I mean, I love the process of them. I love the health benefits of them. I love the flavor. I love the richness. I think that it hits everything if you cook an egg properly. And the funny thing is, a chef's hat, the meaning of a chef's hat with all the lines or the folds in it, the pleats, was a sign of technique, a sign of respect. Because the more pleats you had in your hat, that was the amount of egg dishes you could create. That was the idea behind that. So eggs. And then third, I have refound a love of pasta. Whether it be my own homemade or somebody else's, I have found a new love, reignited a flame for pasta. The other night, I went into my garden. I grabbed a couple of tomatoes. I had some corn that I had fire roasted at the restaurant. I took some chives out of my garden and I took a little bit of butter, and that was my dinner.
Okay. I wanted to ask
fried
you
egg on top of it.
Of course. I wanted to ask you red sauce or olive oil and, cheese.
It depends on the dish. So I am a massive fan of cacio e pepe. I love the concept of it. The concept of pasta water, cheese, and pepper is a phenomenal way to go. I just think that it's a brilliant method, a brilliant technique, to the point that I use my pasta water in almost every sauce that I create. So even the other night when I did my corn and tomatoes and I didn't even have cheese, I did corn, tomatoes, and butter and chives. I always save a little bit of my pasta water to put into my sauce. It's already seasoned. It's done the right way. Over salt. I always tell people over salt your pasta water. There are times where I will save pasta water and I will put it into a little freezer, ice cube trays. And then when I'm making sauce a la minute or just something for myself, I'll reach in, grab an ice cube tray, grab an ice cube and just throw it into my sauce, and it will season it perfectly with a little bit of starch, a little bit of salt. Makes me super happy. Makes me feel
nice
good.
tip. Thanks.
Yeah.
For that. What condiment do you have in your fridge at home?
Name it. Absolutely name it. If I'm standing and I'm pacing right now, because when I talk on the phone, I typically pace. As I look in here right now, I have Feltman's of Coney Island mustard, their hot dog mustard. I have, oh my God, I have Bliss steak sauce. If you've never had Bliss before, check them out. It's BLIS. I have their steak sauce in here. I have their bourbon barrel pure maple syrup. They make a smoked, ready for this? A bourbon maple barrel aged hardwood smoked soy sauce. The depth of flavor in this soy sauce is unmatched. What other condiments do I have in here? I've got some hot sauce from one of my buddies from G Love. His hot sauce is in here. And then I also have another super hot sauce from one of my buddies out in Kansas City who owns a place called Grinders. Those are my condiments, man. I've got fish sauce in here. And then I have jelly. I'm a marmalade guy. I love orange marmalade. So I have orange marmalade in there because every now and then I crave a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on Dave's Killer Bread.
Oh, and you put orange marmalade with it?
I do.
With the
like
peanut.
Orange
I have to try that. I try that.
Orange
I love
marmalade,
orange marmalade
and chunky peanut butter.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Which if you chop up cashews and put it on your peanut butter, it's even better.
Oh, okay. I never tried that. What are like the top 3 cookbooks that inspired you the most in your career?
I mean, Larousse Gastronomique has to be one of the classics. Larousse is the epitome of a chef. I mean, that's the whole idea of what we do is that classic cookery of what Larousse, really put down in writing. That I have to say that I have to find the book. I think it's at the restaurant. There is an artist or an author
can't find his book. There it is right there. James Peterson. James Peterson has a book called Fish and Shellfish that I love. And any of his other books that followed, he did a sauce book that are all brilliant. They're brilliant. And then to round that off, La Technique by Jacques Pepin.
Jacques Pepin, yeah.
Phenomenal book. Phenomenal illustrated book. You can buy it on Amazon for like $3 now.
My last one. What is your biggest pet peeves in the kitchen?
Laziness.
Yeah.
Complacency. Laziness is yeah. You know, but laziness follows on multiple levels. Yeah, laziness. You know, not getting the job done today and waiting for tomorrow to finish. You know, I have a motto for everybody. I would rather be prepared for 500 and be super pissed that I did 50 than to be prepared for 50 and have to do 500. So if you think about what that quote kind of means, what it means is be prepared for your shift. You know, and tracking, the first 3 months of a restaurant, you don't know what you're going to do. It's a crapshoot. Once that 3 months passes, you've got a much better idea of what it is that you're going to do. If you're a restaurant that's been opened a year and you're not looking at last year's numbers for this year, then you're not prepared.
I like your, sentence. You have always key sentences, and maybe you are going to laugh about this, but I take notes when, I attend presentation, and I have one, it's 4 words, but I have written when I was listening to you at your presentation at a nightclub and bar show. And I thought, and it was about, an advice that you were giving to the manager or like the head chefs, at a restaurants or, the manager at bar.
I know, right?
It was inspect what you expect.
Yeah. It is that simple. I do it all the time in the restaurant, and I have to remind myself over and over because I have a very young staff in my restaurant. I have to inspect what I expect. If I tell you that I want the walk-ins cleaned every Sunday night, I want walls done, I want floors done, I want containers changed out, and I just tell you to do that, but I never inspect them, then it's a futile attempt. Why is that person going to do the job that's fully asked of them if it's never really checked up on? I have a certain set of things in the restaurant that I like to be done before each shift. I want to make sure that the flowers are all watered. I want to make sure that all of our roll-ups are done. I want to make sure in this case that all of our plates, we wrap each plate individually with individually wrapped silverware on top of each plate during the pandemic. If I just walk in and I don't inspect that, then my expectation is not being met to what I want because the staff is just like, well, he really doesn't care. He's just telling us to do stuff. So
Absolutely.
You have to inspect what you expect. It's just that simple.
And I think we should finish with this, Chef, inspect what you expect. I think it's a great advice for, everyone, not only in a restaurant or hospitality industry, and every leaders, need to live with this or by this. Yeah. So, Chef Brian Duffy, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I really love that finally we're able to connect and make it happen.
I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your professionalism. And I really appreciate your questions and being given the opportunity to be on here with you. So thank you very much.
There it is. Me and Chef Brian Duffy talking about the current situation and the future of the hospitality industry. The key steps as well that restaurants and bar owner have to take leading to opening night. I hope you like this episode, and if you did, please share it with another chef or with a food enthusiast. I want to give a shout out to a great forum and educational resource for chefs called The Learning Chef. It is created by chefs for chefs, and they have a great Facebook page and Facebook group, The Learning Chef. Make sure to check it out. In 2 weeks, my guest will be Chef Matt Bolus from Nashville, Tennessee, and his restaurant, the 404 Kitchen, and his whiskey bar, Gertie's Bar. We will obviously talk a lot about bourbon and his really interesting concept launched during the pandemic called the Culinary Passport Staycation Dinner Series.
You've just enjoyed another delicious episode of Flavors Unknown. Hungry for more? Hit subscribe. Tell us where you're listening from by leaving a review. And for social media and show notes, head to flavorsunknown.com.